Hello crafty friends, this is the Papered Chef here. In today's tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to use two different types of embossing folders with your Big Shot. Now, you may have a different kind of die cutting machine other than a Big Shot, such as a Cuttlebug or a Vagabond, which is electronic, or a Cut Emboss. Okay, whichever types of machine you have, you can definitely follow along with this tutorial. All right, so Stampin' Up has two kinds of embossing folders. Okay, now this is the one we manufactured last year, and it's just called like Swirls and Curls Textured Impressions Embossing Folder. Okay, and so that we're going to work with that one, and then there's one that just came out, and this is called the 3D. This is a 3D embossing folder. Okay, and so the examples I'm going to show you are High Seas 3D embossing folder. Now, if you notice, this is a bit thicker than this one. Okay, just you notice that? Here, let me turn them both this way. So you see how much thicker the 3D embossing folder is. Okay, so for that reason, we have to do a couple of different things. All right, so in this tutorial, I'm going to show you some tips and tricks, and this is what we're going to accomplish. We're going to accomplish just the regular embossing, which you do with just running it through the folder. And then I'm going to show you how to ink it and how you can achieve different effects by inking your embossing folder. And then we're going to do the same thing with the High Seas embossing folder. And I'm going to show you these first four are sponging techniques, which you do with your sponges. Okay, and then these are different types of inking techniques. And this one's like a stormy sea. And then what you can do with them when you're all done is make cool bookmarks or card bases. And at the end of this video, I'll show you a card I made with an embossed card base. Okay, so let's start with this one. Okay, this is called Swirls and Curls. Now the sandwich with your Big Shot is your Big Shot comes with a Big Shot platform, and I'm sorry that we don't sell the Big Shot anymore, but many of my customers have these, and I just need to still keep doing trainings because some of my team members just got these in March, and they're like, what do we do? So although we're not selling this particular machine anymore, you can follow along, like I said, or just if you have one, I hope you're getting some training here. All right, so you have a Big Shot platform. It also comes with a thin die adapter. We don't need that for embossing, so get ready your thin die adapter when you're embossing. What you will need are your two cutting plates when you're embossing for the first type of embossing. So let's put the two cutting plates. So our sandwich is Big Shot platform, cutting plate number 1. Okay, embossing folder full of paper with the cardstock inside. Okay, here's a piece of cardstock. And I've cut the cardstock 4 inches by 5 1/4 inch, which is your typical card base. Okay, you shut the embossing folder, you put it in there, and your top of your sandwich is another cutting plate. Okay, so to review, everything about the Big Shot's about your sandwich. The magnetic base plate, the first embossing plate, the embossing folder with the cardstock inside, only one piece of cardstock, never try to put two, and a top plate. Okay, that is our sandwich. And then you can crank it. Let me turn my machine around. I'm going to crank it toward me. You can crank it away from you if you want. I'm just going to crank it toward me because I want you to be able to see it. Okay, so step number 1, that's how you just do a regular emboss. Okay, you achieve this great effect. Not that you can't achieve this effect with other kinds of machines, but I think nothing beats an embossing folder with the amount of texture you can do and just that quick pass. This beats even like what you could do with embossing in your scan and cut or other machines. Okay, so look at that, that's awesome. Okay, so now I think the best result you get is when you ink up. Let's turn this light a little bit away. Okay, so we're going to ink this up now. Okay, we're going to ink up the side that says Stampin' Up, and I think that gives me a better effect. Okay, when I use the side that says Stampin' Up. All right, so the way you're going to ink it up is with a brayer. Okay, and I have a Brother Scan and Cut brayer, but you can use whatever brayer you have. I'll link to this one because I use it not just for embossing, but I use it for like making my Brother Scan and Cut mat smooth. Okay, so it's by Brother, but whatever brayer you have. Okay, so let's move this out of the way for a minute and put down your handy mat from the dollar store. Just use a rubber mat. Okay, stick that on your table so you don't get ink on your table. And I like to do what's called, let me put this card over here so I can show you later. I like to do what's called tone on tone in embossing. Okay, tone on tone, meaning I'm using right now the color of cardstock called Balmy Blue because it goes with the card I'll be showing you later made from the Come Sail Away suite. So I'm going to put Balmy Blue ink on balmy blue cardstock. Okay, so that's how I chose to do it. That's how I like to emboss. So you open up your ink. This is Stampin' Up ink. I'll have a link to all my materials, and you roll your brayer over. Actually, I do it sideways because I get a wider. See, I'm just trying to get full coverage. Okay, good. I got full coverage. I'm just rolling it over my ink pad. Okay, good coverage. Now I'm going to roll it over here on the Stampin' Up side, making sure you guys are in view of the camera. Roll, roll. Okay, I think that's pretty good coverage. And if not, just ink it up again because it's all good. And you know what's great about a card base when you emboss it and color it is that you really can just cover up any flaws with like little embellishments and things. Now I'm going to put my piece of cardstock on there. It doesn't matter if it's crooked because as long as it's in the folders, okay? And now I'm going to run it through the Big Shot. We know the sandwich, right? Review. Magnetic plate, base plate, embossing folder, same thing, top plate. Now I can crank it through the opposite direction. Okay? You don't have to see that part because you just saw that part a minute ago. But you do need to see what the result is. Okay? Dun, dun, dun. That side's cool too to use as a card, but look at this. How cool is that? We have ink in the debossed regions, and we have no ink on the top regions. Yay for that kind of technique. Okay, now let's try. All right, we've already showed you without it. Now let's try one where we ink up the side that doesn't say Stampin' Up. Okay? And by the way, when you emboss paper, what's really cool is it becomes sort of like really soft, okay? You're breaking up the fibers in the paper, so you can then make these really cool boxes out of them. Not boxes, like, what are they called? Sour cream containers and things you would have never been able to do when this was hard cardstock. Because we've broken up the fibers, we made it loose. I can actually roll this and do cool things with this paper. All right, so now I got my brayer, I've inked it up. You saw me ink it up. And I'm gonna just ink, now I'm gonna ink this side. Okay, not the side that says Stampin' Up, I'm inking the opposite side. And I'm just rolling it, rolling. Okay, and now, I don't think I got all that part there. Okay, you do that. And now you stick your cardstock in there. Da, da, da. Okay, it doesn't matter that you have ink on the top because, right, you only care about one side of your card. If you get ink on the other side, it's going to be the side with adhesive anyway. Platform, base plate, embossing folder, the lid. All right, we crank it through. And pretty much many of my customers and like scan and cut users said they also have Big Shots. In fact, I even did a survey with my team, like almost everybody had a Big Shot. So I need to show these techniques because even if we're not selling it anymore, we're coming up with something else and you're still going to be able to use these same techniques. Pretty cool, right? So now you've colored in the insides. I actually like this effect better because it comes out way smoother. But this is cool because maybe you want that sort of vintagey sort of mottled texture. But I like this one because it's just, I like using the Stampin' Up side because then it fills in all the gaps. The raised areas are not colored. But here we go. Let's compare that. This one and this one. Super cool. And this is cool too. Okay? I'm going to show you something I do with my waves at the end. Okay, now I'm going to clean this. Well, I can clean this now and while I'm thinking of it. So to clean these, I use a brayer. I use my stamp cleaner to clean my brayer, but to clean these embossing folders, I use baby wipes. I just use Pampers. Well, it doesn't matter. Pampers, Huggies. I mean, cheap dollar store baby wipes. Any kind of baby wipes. I just use baby wipes. Later on, I'm going to wash this off because I don't want any soapy residue. But I'm talking about right now, so it doesn't get on my shirt and my arms. I'm just wiping it off so it doesn't get all over my Big Shot. All right, so that's drying. We'll put him over there. Oops, it's already on. It's already still. See that? I still have some ink on there. And our inks come off pretty easily if you catch them right away before they dry too much. All right, now let's talk about the 3D embossing folders, and we'll leave the sandwich there for a minute. And we'll leave my ink open while I talk about this. All right, so one of my team members said to me, I just got this 3D embossing folder, and like no matter what kind of sandwich I make, it's not going through the machine. What do I do? All right, so first of all, Stampin' Up has already thought of that, and they do have a special plate that they're selling. It's $10, and it's a plate that works with the 3D embossing folders. But Many of us don't have the plate. It's not even in the catalog. It's just you have to know the number to get it. Only one of my team members has ordered it. Okay, so I decided to make my own shim. Okay, so what I mean is, let's just put the paper in there. I'm just going to take, here's my embossing folder, high C's. I'm sticking my paper in there. And notice how I stick my card base in there this way, because I like the waves. I like the waves when they go. My cards are going to be vertical, so I want my waves going up and down like this. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. All right, so there we go. Now the sandwiches, you have this magnetic base platform. I have to show you the wrong way first, or what you're going to try to do first, and then I'll show you the right way. You stick your base plate down, you stick your 3D embossing folder down, you stick your plate down, and then what happens is you try to put it, let me just close this. I'm going to close the ink because I'm afraid I'm going to get ink when I show you this. And you try to use it with your big shot, and you're like, what the heck? In fact, you always point whenever you're doing embossing with these 3D folders, I would always take the side with the seam on it and put that in this way first. Okay, so you try to crank it through and you're like, what the heck? Oh no, it doesn't go. You're like, that's bad. And you're like, you're feeling like you're gonna break your big shot. Okay, so take out the base plate, okay? Take it out. And you're gonna use my homemade shim trick, which is 3 to 4 pieces of cardstock. I've tried 3 and it worked, but 4 is a little tighter. And don't use your good cardstock like your Whisper White. Use like your cheap cardstock that you get from Michael's. 4 pieces of it. So one, I just cut an 8.5 by 11 piece in half. 1, 2, 3, 4. And actually 3 works as well. These I cut kind of crooked, so I didn't use them. I was just cutting them with scissors. Okay, 4 pieces of cardstock. So there's no base plate. Okay, magnetic plate. Here's my sandwich. Magnetic plate. And then I have my 4 pieces of cardstock. Okay, now I have my embossing folder with the cardstock in it, and I have 1 top plate. That's it. Okay, 1 top plate. And I'm putting it seam first through the big shot. Okay, let's make some room. Let's put the big shot closer so you can see it. And let's crank it through. Okay, no cracking noise, no crazy noises, no thinking you're gonna break your machine. You've made your own homemade shim. But if you don't want to use the 4 pieces of cardstock, you can ask me for the catalog number. Actually, I'll put it in the description of this video of this special plate we have that does 3D embossing folders that I don't have yet. Okay, there we go. We made some cool waves. See how those waves are cool, but let's make them even cooler. Let's make it so we can really, I like that side better. I mean, that's already nice, okay? But it's a lot nicer when we take, let me get the pad. Okay, putting down my rubber pad. It's a lot nicer when we ink this side that says Stampin' Up with our brayer. So now I have to open the ink again. Where did I put the ink? It's amazing how many things you can lose in that few minutes. Okay, here we go. We're gonna ink it. Okay. Rolling. Focusing. Okay, so now we're gonna just ink it. I always ink it larger than I need because I wanna make sure that it covers my card. And you can buy re-inkers for the stamp pads pretty cheaply. You don't need to buy a whole new stamp pad when you run out of ink. But you know how many, I've made like 50 cards already and I have not run out of balmy blue ink. So it really does last a long time. Okay, so there you go. I've inked up my embossing folder. Where's my, I know I have more pieces of cardstock to emboss. Okay, I have to reach over. Sorry. I needed a plain piece of cardstock to emboss. This is actually not as long as, oh, here we go. I know, I found them. I knew I cut out so many before this. I'm like, I need to have enough for all these examples. All right, here we go. I'm putting down, this is a card base. I'm shutting the folder and I'm putting it on my sandwich, which was the magnetic plate, the 4 pieces of cardstock, the embossing folder, and the top plate. And we roll it through the big shot. No crazy noises. If you want to roll it back through, you can. Like if you don't think you got a tight grip, then you can always roll it back through the other direction. Let's see how that came out. Okay. The one side is already nice, but look at that cool side. And you twist it that way. Up and down, the waves, they go. Look how much easier it is to see the waves. Now, wherever there's like a lot of extra ink, I would probably put little boats. Like I think the top sky looks awesome, or not the top sky, the background up here looks awesome. And these are a little dark, and you just stick some sailboats in front of them. Cover up any little flaws. And I don't think they're even flaws. I think they still looks awesome. Okay, so let's do it again, but we're gonna ink this side. because whenever you ink a different side of the embossing folder, you get a whole different effect. Okay, I'm rolling the brayer. I could have cleaned it between too, because it's almost looking like it still had some of the patterns from the swirls and curls. All right, now we're gonna ink this side of the folder. And because of the way I'm doing these cards, I'm actually using these for my cards. I don't usually make a lot of the same card, but this time I'm making card swaps with my team. We exchange cards. So this time I'm making a lot of the same card. Putting it there. Okay, I'm putting that down on that side, closing it. It doesn't matter that I get ink on this side, because it really doesn't matter, because I'm gonna have adhesive on the other side. And I put my little homemade shim of 4 pieces of cardstock on top of the magnetic base plate, put the embossing folder on it, put the top base plate, or top plate, cutting plate, and we roll it through. Oops, it's not straight. We roll it through. Okay, and we check it out, and we turn that over, and look at that. We have a cool effect. There's kind of like a line through that one, but that's okay. It's a pretty cool effect. All right, so now, and you can, if you just want to cut those into bookmarks or whatever you want to do, I'm going to show you how to clean the brayer, and I'm going to show you some other techniques I do with the ones that I embossed in a plain way. So let's first of all clean the embossing folder with the baby wipe. Okay, I use the baby wipes for the embossing folders. Then I'm going to wash them with soap and water later. Not soap and water, just water. I'm going to wash them with water later when this video is done. I just want to keep the ink from drying onto the embossing folder. I put that over there. Now I take, for my brayer, I use my stamp cleaning tool. It's called Stampin' Scrub. Okay, well first you can get some ink off of your brayer just by using the rest of a little bit of your baby wipe, but it doesn't really come off right unless you use your Stampin' Scrub. And then again, I'm going to wash it later. So here's how the Stampin' Scrub works. We're going to open up the Stampin' Scrub, and on one side you have little raindrops. There we go, raindrops. Let me just tilt that here. See, can you see those? I hope my crafty friends can see these. Let me get really close. Okay, let me zoom in the camera. See, there's raindrops on one side of the Stampin' Scrub, and there is a sun on the other side of the Stampin' Scrub. Okay, so that's your dry side. So you only put chemicals and you put the stamping cleaner on the wet side. So the stamping cleaner, mine has seen better days, it got all wet, but you know, you just scrub, it's called Stampin' Mist, I think I need some more, there's not a whole lot in there, but you spray the Stampin' Mist on this side. I should not spray it while my poor ink pad is open. I think it just got misted. Oh well. Okay, so anyway, then you spray the wet side with the Stampin' Mist, and then you roll the brayer. This is also, by the way, how you clean your stamps. See, now I got all the ink off. Pretty cool, because I like it. It's full of little bristles, and it got rid of all the ink. And then I used the dry side to dry my brayer. But now I think it's already good, but I'm still going to wash it later with water to get all the ink off. All right, so now I'm going to show you my personally favorite technique for embossing. Okay, and that is to use what's called like a sponging technique. Okay, I have to go all the way over here to get my stuff. So now I'm going to use I'm just going to use these sponges, which I'll link to in the description. They're just something I like to use. I'm going to use a stamping block by Stampin' Up. It doesn't really matter. It's just called stamping. What's number here? Use any stamping block, acrylic. It doesn't matter. D. Okay, I'm using stamping block D, but it doesn't matter what stamping block you use. I used to be able to just use the lids of my old inks, but now these you can't squeeze. In the past, you could squeeze the ink, get some on the lid, and get it off of there. But now you can't squeeze them anymore. They're made too well. But that's okay. We still work around it. So now what I do is I take the ink pad, I open up. It's still balmy blue, and I just sort of I get some ink on my stamping block. Okay. Now I take my sponge, which I replace. I have one for every color of ink we have in Stampin' Up. I have every color I have. I'm still amassing my ink collection, and I rub my ink all over there. So that way it gets it even. I use the acrylic block to get even sponging, because if I just was to dip my sponge right into here, it would come out with big blue blotches all over my waves. So now I'm going to take my waves. I'm going to take my waves that have no ink on them. See? I didn't ink either side. And I like to use this side. The reason I like to use this side of the embossing folder is because it's pointy. The waves are pointy. Okay, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ink the waves starting at the bottom, and then I go up to the top and it's more subtle. Okay, so let's show you that. Here's my ink. I'm sponging on the bottom. I like this effect the best of all the things I showed you. Okay, see how that goes? You could see the waves really well, but as you get to the top, it's not as much. I don't make it as dark. Oh, I like it. I like it. And every time I do it, it comes out differently. Okay, in fact, this is the darkest it's ever come out. Maybe because I usually just put a little bit of ink like that more. It's more like something like that. So we'll do one more with that way. Okay, so one more with just a little bit of ink on it, and you'll see the difference in this. Okay, so here's one I did earlier. See how it's not as much ink, but it doesn't matter because you're making this into the card base. Okay, let's see if I have one here. Nope, these are all. Here we go. I have to make one real quick because I want you to see the different. So yes, my embossing folder is kind of wet. I know it's a little wet. You probably don't want to do it when it's too wet unless you're trying to make your paper soft. I'm just running it through, by the way, just because I just want to ink it one more time without as much ink. But you know what? When I swap cards, everybody's getting a different one of my cards, so it really doesn't matter if they don't all match exactly. All right, so there goes. What I just did is I embossed one more really quickly. Okay, and I made a little bit less ink on the sponge this time. And I'm gonna start at the bottom. Let's move this out of the way, up here. And I'm not gonna rub as hard because I don't really want it to be as dark. Yes, that's what I was going for. Sometimes you just know what you're going for, but you can't really explain it. You have to see it. So I'm glad that you are able to see this because you can just watch the magic of this embossing folder appear. The magic appears because your waves are appearing. Your sky, or not sky, but like the background of the ocean is like not as dark. And it's kind of like you put your little sailboats in the front. All right, so I'll be doing many more of these as soon as this video is over. This is the effect I'm going for. Now, let me show you my card and why you did all this work. Why do you want to learn to emboss? What kind of cool things you can do with it? Okay, so this is my card, and this is what I'm making for my swaps. Okay, so I'm using the Come Sail Away suite. I am using, let's see what all I'm using. Balmy Blue cardstock. That's the background. I embossed it just like I showed you with Balmy Blue ink on top of my embossing folder. I used Memories and More sticker, one of these little stickers from there, but I'm not using that on all my cards. I'm actually just doing this part. Set sail in the direction of your dreams. This is a little stitched frame die, a stitched die that came with the dies. I'm using Lighthouses. That's Mossy Meadow. That's Soft Suede with the sailboats and the die I cut out with the die set. And that is Night of Navy. I used Baker's Twine. It's Sahara Sand, and it's Night of Navy Baker's Twine. And finally, I used this little stuff. It's called braided linen something. Braided linen. Maybe it's just called braided linen. Who knows? Okay, but I'll put it in the description. And what I had to do to that linen, because it came off of the braided linen trim, I think. It came off a roll, and I had to like pull it apart or stretch it out. Not pull it apart, but I had to go like this to make it really cool like that. I wanted it to be like frayed. Hey, frayed knot. Okay, I like it frayed, like it's kind of like, you know, nautical. I'm going for the nautical look. So my swaps are going to look something like this with black cardstock, white on the inside, maybe another sentiment on the inside. And there you go. And it'll have a matching envelope. Oh no, we don't do envelopes, sorry. I usually have matching envelopes, but when we do swaps, we don't actually give each other envelopes. So there you go. I hope you like this embossing tutorial, and I hope you'll give it a try with whichever machine that you may have in your arsenal of craft die cutting machines. Bye for now. This is the Papered Chef.